Well guys, welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. This is hopefully the third and final installment of making this dozer blade less crappy. See how the new pin fits in here. Yeah, see that play in the bottom there? That's undesirable. So we need to do better on that. The top's honestly not terrible, but the bottom is terrible. So I think I'm going to start with knocking the bottom bushing out and seeing what's left of the base metal. I have a feeling she's pretty stretched, unfortunately, but we'll see what we can do. That is exactly the desired result I was looking for there, was to be able to knock out half the bushing and relieve it. Now I should be able to work this out of the hole fairly easily. Oh yeah, baby. So look how thin that is on the front side there. I cut it on the thick side. This is what that bushing used to look like. So here's your before and after. Crazy how thin these get. You could even see all those stress cracks in it from the metal splaying out. But the cool thing is that with a little bit of cleanup here with a die grinder, probably hopefully going to be able to get this new bushing pressed in. I'm gonna leave this one as it's in like immaculate condition. The pin must have never moved in it. It's probably the only bushing that's still good on this machine. Right before I started this, me and Mrs. Spanky were eating Chinese food, and I got a fortune cookie that says, "You're about to get very lucky soon." And I was like, ooh, what does that mean? So I came out here to see if I can get this bushing in, and it's not going so well. Something's moving. I'm really thinking that these are spread, and when they're spread like this, you've got an axis going this way and an axis going this way. This pin needs to go right through them. I don't think I'm going to be closing this C back up very easily. What I'm thinking is hog this hole out even more and try to get this bushing pressed. Well, first of all, I can't even get it pressed in, so we got a lot of hogging to do. But I think I need to do it kind of more on the back side and more on the bottom side here to kind of transform the axis of that hole a little bit. And if we have to, we can weld the bushing in. But it really can't go anywhere by design, and you'll see that in a little bit when I make up my final pin. Well, it's in, and the pin is in. Not bad, my friends. So I'm strategically welding the front bottom of the bushing and the top rear of the bushing. And that's gonna naturally wanna pull that bushing a little bit in the direction I need to go. Maybe I am getting lucky tonight. All in all, with the fight that gave me, I really can't complain. We're there now. Now it's still hot. We'll see how it is when it cools. The little trick of welding the back on the top and welding the front on the bottom to cock the bushing a little bit worked textbook. It's almost laughable how well it worked. Now, I made this mistake one time before. This is still pretty hot. So once this cools, I'll make sure the pin still slides through without too much force, but I think we're there. All right, now it's time to start designing a new pin. And yes, that still fits when it's cold, which is just great. I'm so happy. Oh, it's a little too good. Clamp that. So I'm gonna design my own pin for this. The way the John Deere worked is it's a 2-inch pin. It's got a huge nut on the bottom with a washer. And then basically there was just a washer welded to the top, and I had to torch this off to get it apart. And they put it in like this, kind of just like I'm planning on doing. The problem is that this nut has been scraping along the dirt for 50 years. So I'm gonna make something similar to this, but upside down. That way the threads and stuff are up here, and there's nothing on the bottom to drag across the ground or wear out. As you saw, this Dozer frame lifts up like 36 inches, so there's no reason to, you know, not do that, I feel like. So anyway, what we're gonna do here is I've got a 2-inch washer, and I'm gonna burn this onto the top of the pin, and this will actually be the bottom, but this will get us started. All right, so here's the pin in its correct orientation. So you'll see the bottom, it's just a smooth plate. So I screwed up by welding the washer on this pin first. I should have done all my machining, then welded the washer on, because I have no way to hold this and I don't have a steady rest. So with some truing and a good center drill, I was able to get a decent center in it. Good enough for what we're doing. So I'm gonna drill and tap this to 1/2-13 so we can run a bolt down the center. All right, so here's this cap I'm making here with a counter bore to fit the pin, and the bolt will come through the center. And really, this should clamp down flush to the top of the pin and give me a nice, tight, snug fit in that C-frame. All right, so that is it there. Now I do have a tiny bit of play remaining up and down, which is okay to leave it that way, though I could run my counter bore a little deeper into this cap here, and that way this will actually cinch down on that top bushing. Kind of my intent with this pin is if this pin constrains these ears from doing more of this, it'll probably be all right. But at the end of the day, this is only a 1/2-inch bolt, and this is a 70 horsepower Dozer, so it'll probably just tear that bolt up. So maybe I will just leave it like this. The factory pin was very sloppy in there, as you guys saw. I don't know how they fit 50 years ago, if it was a tight fit or not. I could also throw a washer under this. I have more of these washers here. Let's give that a try, see how that looks. So we could throw one of these on top and drop our cap on that, and that will eliminate all play here. I think this is gonna work great. This pin, for all intents and purposes, is fixed. I mean, it could twist if it had to, but naturally it won't. That means the big bushings that I put in the angle bracket will be the ones articulating on this. With all that surface area, I think we'll get a really long life out of this. We are moving on to another dreaded part of this project. I would imagine somebody had some hook welded on here and they ripped this 1/4-inch to 3/8 plate clean apart, hitting it with a sledge, and it's just got too much spring to it. But I need to knock these high spots under so I can weld a plate over top of it. Like everything on this dozer, this blade is trash, right? The skin is just paper thin. It's all folded in and peeled up, and you know, look at this thing. It's all dented and crappy. Luckily, the mold board is not totaled. I mean, they ran that cutting edge pretty low. They started to get into it, but there's enough here to bolt a new cutting edge on, so we're not going to get into that. But you can see here, I mean, look, there's holes through it where it's so thin, you know, there's holes coming through. So I don't know how many hours are really on this thing, but this blade indicates that there's quite a few. So what we're going to do is we're going to partially reskin this blade. I'm not really interested in up here. This stuff has, you know, hardly any wear on it compared to down here. So I'm thinking we're going to run from probably the top side of these bolts up to maybe that line that you can see there. Maybe that's a good spot. But first, I need to get all these high spots knocked down, which means I need to get the dirt out from behind this, or just cut this whole damn thing out, one of the two. So that way when we weld here and here, we can press down. This line right here is actually framing on the mold board. So that's where we're gonna do our center welds at. We're gonna do little rosette welds across here, and hopefully maybe use a bottle jack and some chain or something to form some plate into here. My shop is never going to recover from this. Well, 18's my lucky number, so we'll go 18. 18 by 89. So that's the curve we got to make happen. Not terrible, but concerning. Even though this is only 10 gauge, it's freaking stiff. So really the way to do this is to get a sheet rolled at a shop, but that wasn't in the cards for this project. So I got to figure out a way to do it spanky style. So if you guys are looking at a used dozer and you see all these problems it's got, which they all have problems, unless you're buying something very new or very fresh, it's going to have tons of problems. And you think, oh, it just needs some steel on the blade. It just needs a couple bushings. It just needs a steering clutch. Oh, it just needs a seal. It's got an oil leak. Those things add up. You'll be working on this thing for a year. So just keep that in mind. I'm not feeling like I'm taking the easiest route here, but I can't think of another way to bend this. I'm not going to be able to heat this. You can't heat this enough to roll it like that. Just don't really know what I'm doing, but we're just going to get pushing and see what happens here. Okay. That's not terrible. Did break one of my tack welds, you son of a biscuit. Well, we can work with that though. Oh yeah, a little risky for sure. So this air gap that you see here is actually fake. The mold board is worn out there from not having any protection. So I'll bring that in a little bit and we'll fill that with weld. And then up here we have some gap. We're gonna have to press into there as well. So it looks like it'll be like a 3-way press, but the curve runs out, you know, probably till about here based on what I just did. So if I do this every 10 inches across the blade and we rosette weld into what's left and then burn the top and bottom in, I think we got this. All right, this wasn't one of the most fun things I've ever done, but we got 49 inches worth of blade resurfaced. Look at that radius fit right there. That's really nice. Rosette welded strategically every 6 inches and then every 4.5 inches vertically here. So we grab what's left of this bottom board, which is nothing, and then we touch here. Here, you can see the witness marks of how far this pulled down. That's what I love to see. So now I need to cut the other piece here, do the same exact thing, and then we will fully weld the perimeter of this. And that's what really actually holds this together. These are kind of just holding it until I get to that point. So once you constrain it top and bottom, that thing's gonna stay curved. But really a really nice fit there. As expected, we do have a gap here, but that's because this board is all pushed in and basically just paper thin. So this thing may get dented up over time, but it's not gonna have holes in it, and it's not gonna be letting dirt come through the back of the blade like it was before. As you can see, really nice fit there as well. The welds came apart as expected. All right, I think I'm gonna quit hammering there. I mean, this one's almost ready to weld as is. Now, of course, you're gonna have a couple dents from that process, but we're not going for that slick, perfect Dozer blade here, or I would have approached this very differently. Bear with me, we're getting there, all right? It's actually turned out pretty awesome. So we got a lot to trim off of here, obviously. We'll make that fit the mold board, but in the meantime, I want to start welding the entire circumference of these pieces. It's going to suck. It's like 16 feet of welding. After I welded 8 feet of it, I think I finally got the hang of stick welding, at least in the horizontal position. I got a couple couple little pits, but you're actually never going to see any of this because the cutting edge bolt's on there. But either way, it's great practice. Now I get to practice all along the top, practice filling the center a little more, and then flipping the blade over and practice on the back. Alright, we are done from the front of the blade. So we're welded top and bottom 100%. We ground our rosette welds down so they're not sticking out. We ground our center weld down so it's smooth. This welded up really good. Honestly, didn't take that long. I probably welded on that for 35 minutes. Covered 7.5 feet worth of linear weld, which is pretty good. We are welded up and partially reskinned. Let's put a good cutting edge on it now. It's gonna paint behind the cutting edge here because hopefully I'll never see in here again in my lifetime, but probably will. All right, well, it looks like I was fed some fake news at some point. So I was told these dozers are a 5/8 plow bolt for the edge. That's obviously not the case. They're actually a 3/4 inch plow bolt. Plow bolt's what they call them. They're like a carriage bolt with a nice flat head on them. And they fit nicely into this. Well, are supposed to fit nicely into that. The ones that came on it obviously are worn beyond belief. Where a newer one looks more like this, but obviously we have a size mismatch here. So gotta order new bolts. That sucks because that's going to delay this. But anyway, these bolts are enough to get this thing out of the shop so I can get back to my other part of my life. The old blade didn't turn out too bad here. Pretty nice. Angle bracket came out real nice too. Not that any of this matters. Let me put that thing on real quick. Probably 2 months later and I'm finally getting back to this dozer. I've been working on it but doing other things. So it's time to put the blade back together. Here's the center pin I made. It's just a washer, thick washer, welded to 2-inch pin stock. Not even pin stock, it's just 1018 junk metal. 1/2-inch bolt down the center, and then there is a pin here. Don't mind this hole. There's a pin here, and what this does is it will retain the cap from spinning. Right, and the thought with that is, I'll show you that in just a little bit here when we get the frame put on. But essentially, this will take, if this pin does try to rotate in the frame here, this pin will prevent the cap from basically unscrewing itself. All right, so here's our refurbished angle plate. I did make this center bushing here, which I think I mentioned in the part 2 video, but essentially that's just a spacer between these two. So if a couple years down the road this thing gets all beat around and these bushings crack out of their welds, they can't actually slide out of the frame. Everything will still be retained and in there. So let's see how much of a bear it's going to be to get this thing situated. No complaints there, boys. We got an angle frame again. How cool is that? So I had a feeling that these ears were spread. And it looks like that was more than a feeling. So we want to do what we can to get rid of that play as well. So I'm going to send the pin down a little. Send that down far enough. I could easily get one shim in here. If we get two, I'd be stoked. Nah, it doesn't look like we're going to get two in there. Nah, definitely not around the back. No way. Alright. Well, that's better than nothing. We'll take it. Hopefully it goes in as nice as it did the first time. That was really nice. And there we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Right on up, baby. And there we go. We're back to nice, tight, smooth angle frame action with absolutely no play rocking this way. You'd be hard pressed to get a little over an eighth out of it up and down vertically. So that is pretty cool. Very, very happy with this. It's nice to see this thing back on the machine after all that work. Alright guys, well, due to the excessive wind noise, I'm going to voice this over, but it's nice to finally get this back together. We ended up doing a ton of work to this, so we fixed all the steering bushings. The center pin bushing here turned out really nice. Put new bushings in our steering cylinders. That turned out really good. We welded the sides of the angle bracket. We built up the pin on the front with weld to take all the slop out of that. All in all, just a very extensive repair on this Dozer frame, and it really came out good. No play at all, just the way it came from the factory 50 years ago. Now, while the techniques I used in these videos are acceptable, I'd say, I did not pay much attention to material choice. So if you were going to do this for someone that uses this Dozer commercially, you'd want to be a little smarter about your pin and bushing materials that you choose. You'd probably want to choose something a lot harder than what I did, but I worked with what I could get my hands on in a timely manner. And like I say in the other videos, this Dozer's not going to see many hours per year, just some general use around our property. Anyway, thanks for watching Spank Ranch Garage. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.